Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Broken Berean. And Louisiana has passed a law that will require all classrooms in all public schools to display a poster-size version of the Ten Commandments. Here we go. As a Christian, I think there's nothing wrong with displaying the Ten Commandments in the classroom. Mandating it by law, here comes a storm. And we're going to take a few minutes to look at this from a few different angles. But what it comes down to is I do think Louisiana overstepped. And why I say this as a Christian, why I wouldn't be for this, is because it sets a precedent. If this is accepted and continues, what's going to stop another state from picking a different religion and displaying their important religious texts in that? And why? Well, it's not my religion, so I don't want that in my classroom. And you have to understand that from an American point of view, that was a big deal. And why was this a big deal? Why is it still a big deal? Well, we're going to have to go way back in time. And we're going to go back, no, not to Thomas Jefferson, to the people who wrote to Thomas Jefferson. And that is the Danbury Baptist Association. That's right. The Danbury Baptist Association wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson saying, "We want separation of church and state. We do not want the government to establish a religion for the country or for a state or colony." Now, why would they put this forward at such an early time before we were even a country officially? And this is something that is not taught in schools, but is historical fact. But it's not taught in schools. Every colony had an established faith. That's right. We had established faith, just like we did in England. People came up here for religious freedoms, but if you want to practice your particular religion, or basically your particular denomination of Christianity, you had to go to a certain colony to practice it. Now, a lot of them were Anglican, Church of England, even though they fled from England. I would say, I don't know the exact number, I'd have to look it up, but about half of them were established Anglican churches. That was the religion of the colony. So if me as a Baptist wanted to practice my faith, I would have to go to a colony that has an established Baptist religion. And here's the funny part. They didn't have one. There wasn't a colony. However, there was Delaware. Delaware did not have an established faith for its colony. I do believe for its entire inception. They're one of two that didn't. And this is where the Danbury Baptists were, and they sent a letter, "Hey, we're Baptists, but we don't want to be stuck in Delaware. We want to go and move about the country and practice our faith freely without being prosecuted by another colony and eventually state." This is where it came from. It's not because they were magnanimous and foresight. No, they had one simple request. They wanted to practice their faith outside of Delaware. Because if they moved to Virginia, they would have to become Anglican. They would have to go to an Anglican church, do the liturgy and everything of the Anglican church, and could not practice their theology as Baptists. They couldn't. You would either be arrested or thrown out of the colony. This is our history. And no one teaches that in public school. Why would they? because it's such a minor thing. But in the grand scheme of things, especially now, I think it's very important. And if you want more information on this, I beg you to pick up the book Democratic Religion by Gregory Willis. No, is it Wills or Willis? I'm not sure. But I'll put a link to the Amazon book down below. And it's an amazing read because it goes back and talks about the early history and the politics of the early part of America and other things. But it focuses a lot on early Christianity in the colonies. And it opened my eyes because when I read this book, I was 25, 26. No, I was probably closer to 30 when I read this book for the first time. And I had never heard this information before. And I was like, part of me was like, this can't be right. Man, looked it up. It's on Britannica. It's on Wikipedia. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, they didn't make it up for this book. This is a well done research book that I do believe was a PhD thesis at some point and got turned into a book. So this is a well documented book on where we get separation of church and state. It's from the Danbury Baptists, not Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson put it forward because they reached out to him because he was the one, penning the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and all this stuff. Like, please put this in there. This is where we get our religious freedom from. So if you love having freedom of religion, think a Baptist. Just kidding. But not really. So I see why this is such a bad thing, because I wouldn't want someone with a different religion that's diametrically opposed to my own having theirs in there. And I'm not saying I don't want the Ten Commandments in there. I just don't want to mandate it, because that is a slippery slope. Who knows? I mean, if this is not struck down, the ACLU and other organizations have already filing lawsuits against it, separation of church state, religious freedom, and all that. And I do think they will win, because that's exactly why. Because, I mean, seriously, if you think about it, Michigan, I think, could probably get like a poster of the 4 pillars of Islam posted in their schools. They could probably get the votes to get that passed. And I am not Islamic. That's not a religion I subscribe to. And I wouldn't want my kids growing up in Michigan, if we were there, to have that religion shown to them that's something opposed to ours as a family. Now, do I think, even if you take out the first 3 commandments, are the other 7 wonderful, perfectly well thought out moral and ethical guidelines to live by? Yes, they are. We can all agree on them. Don't covet. Don't murder. Don't steal. These are simple things. And I have to admit that I would love to see them in schools. But I would rather Louisiana have passed a law that says you cannot restrict the posting of these in classrooms if a teacher or school decides to put them in there. And I think I would put it down not to just the school, but to the teacher of that classroom. I think it would be up to them to decide. But, I mean, as a Christian, I'd love that the 10 Commandments would be in a classroom. But by law, by force, no, absolutely not. Forcing religion onto another, forcing someone to practice a faith they do not agree with is wrong. Period. That is always the worst part of every faith in existence. I won't say every faith, but the majority of the faiths have done this at some point in time. Probably with the exception of a few of the Eastern religions, but even then, I mean, look at China and Mongolia. No, Tibet. That's what I'm thinking of. Tibet. Yeah. Uh, they can't. They have no religious freedom, and the reason there's such turmoil is basically over religion. And this is just something I love. I love the Ten Commandments. I love the Bible. I do think it should be free to access easily in the classroom for any student. I do not think it should be mandated. Because if we do, I'm not even lying, we're going to get something that we don't foresee, that we all, with the exception of that one group, will hate to have in our classroom. I don't know what that would be, but something that will do that. I mean, it's almost, I don't want to, I'll say it. It's like early Orwellian. The government saying this religion has to be in the classroom. No, because yes, you agree with it now. All of Louisiana may agree with it, but don't mandate it by law. Do not. Do not. Do not. I mean, come on. I can't remember. It's House Bill 71, if you want to look it up. And honestly, I do think that, tons of civil liberties groups are going to come after this. And they'll defend with the First Amendment, because this isn't the first time this has happened like this. I do think it's the first time statewide something like this has ever been passed, in my knowledge, but it's a slippery slope. It really is. If you're in Louisiana, or you know someone in Louisiana, how would you handle this? If you're a Christian, what's your response to this? Do you agree with me, or do you say, no, we should mandate it? If you're not a Christian, post below and tell me, absolutely not. Or, yes, I do agree with it. I do think that the Ten Commandments do teach a good moral lessons, moral guidelines, and ethical lessons and ethical guidelines to our children. Or do you kind of see with me? It's great if they're in there, but just don't mandate them. So, it's one of those things. It really is. And I don't know the best way to feel about this. Like, I love it and I hate it. I love the fact that the Ten Commandments are in there. I hate the fact that it's legislated. And it shouldn't be. I am a Christian first, above all. I am also an American. And those two things in this point align. Nowhere in the Bible does it say to force religion. It is to tell them to repent and believe. That's it. And I do think that's the truth. We need it so much. To be honest with our religion, with our faith, and do not force it on anyone. Pray for them, persuade them, show them, but do not force them. As Christians, we're better than that. We should know better than that. But Louisiana said, hey, it's 2024. It's already going to be a chaotic political year, as we've all seen. And by golly, can't wait for November to come and go at this point. So they just decided, hey, you know what? Let's just stir the pot a little bit more with something unthought of coming out in this political era. That's really all I got to say on that today. I will see you guys tomorrow. And as always, I love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it.